All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar from Team Florida. We're so pleased to be presenting this. This webinar will be recorded and posted online for Team Florida members. Attendees, please use the Q&A feature located in your Zoom control panel to post questions to the panelists throughout the webinar. Finally, Team Florida will be issuing continuing education credit for Team Florida members who registered and attended today's webinar. We are also proud now to offer AICP continuing education credit for Team Florida members. Valerie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Barbara. It's a pleasure to be here with Team Florida. I'm with Stokes Creative Group. We're a public relations and public outreach firm that specializes in transportation. I have the pleasure of introducing our panel. I'm going to go through and introduce everybody and read their bios and then facilitate through their presentations. And first, I have the pleasure of introducing Michelle McKeish, and she is the Chief of Staff and Public Affairs Officer for the Central Florida Expressway Authority, a position with responsibilities that impact almost every operational facet of the toll road agency. From brand management to governmental affairs to staff oversight and strategic communications, Michelle fulfills a myriad of leadership roles that are integral to CFX's performance throughout its 5-county region. As the agency's chief communicator, Michelle translates the 125-mile toll system's benefits of time and cost savings into communications to CFX customers, elected officials, transportation partners, and the community at large. Since joining CFX in 2008, she's worked tirelessly to elevate the agency's identity as an operator of a world-class transportation system. With that high standard in mind, she led an integral effort to define the agency's vision and mission, a process that identified excellence, innovation, teamwork, service, and commitment as CFX's core value. Michelle earned a bachelor's degree in communications and marketing from Florida State University and spent nearly 20 years in the transportation industry. Next up, we have Brianna Smith from Selemonar. Brianna has over 9 years of public involvement experience. She conducts community outreach programs for planning, design, and construction infrastructure projects. Due to the recent COVID pandemic, Ms. Smith is proficient in conducting virtual public meetings with GoToWebinar as outlined by the Florida Department of Transportation. We also have a pleasure of having Marco Garcia from Global Solutions. He's a Global Solutions executive. Marco is a professional at ARC, advancing the distribution of information via technology. He's passionate about improving the way people communicate, driving innovation through the AEC industry, including sales and operations for large format printing and finishing for corporate accounts. We also have Gary Ratcliffe, owner and CTO of Real Image Solutions, a full-service visualization studio specializing in providing transportation and infrastructure visual support using both traditional graphics and the innovative 123 BIM technology. RIS founder Gary Ratcliffe is a performance-driven senior professional with over 25 years of industry experience and expertise in computer visualization and business operations, both from production seat and business owner. From napkin sketch to VR and everything in between, they visualize and communicate your concepts and design ideas. And last, we have Matt Toohey, who is Vice President of Production and Technology at Stokes Creative Group. He's the firm's backbone, responsible for producing the technical media that makes so many of Stokes' projects memorable. From websites to animations, he can bring technical concepts to life and within a project's scope and budget. Mac's expertise has been instrumental in major projects and websites, including TBARTA, BRT, and the new New York Bridge project. Mac is currently involved in Stokes' public outreach efforts for the Long Island Railroad expansion and the Purple Line project in Maryland. Matt has more than 13 years experience in the industry and holds a BS in multimedia web development from the Art Institute of Philadelphia. So we're going to get started with Matt. Turn it over to him to begin his presentation. Let me get our PowerPoint pulled up. Let's see here for our Team Florida group. Here we go. Sorry about the delay there. Matt, please take it over.
Hi, thank you for having me. Um, Obviously, as Valerie had mentioned, I am Vice President of Production and Technology at Stokes Creative Group, which puts me in a unique position to deal with most of our digital assets and aspects that we use while creating public outreach. Valerie, I'm not seeing the presentation. I'm not sure if everyone else is. Just,
Okay,
um,
let me fix that.
sorry.
Not sure what I did wrong there. My apologies to everybody on. Oops. We even practice this in advance. So when you're doing a presentation on doing great visual presentations, of course you're going to have something that goes wrong. All right. Share screen. How about now?
Yes, thank you so
Sorry
much.
about that. Thank you
So,
everyone for your patience.
yeah. All right. So obviously, now you can see the presentation. We're sort of going to go through how we can engage digital assets to create a more meaningful public engagement, not only digitally as we're doing today, but also through face-to-face communication. Valerie, if you can hit me with the next slide.
Mhm.
One of those steps is obviously digital engagement, and that's not limited to just online meetings like we're having today. Obviously, it's one of the tools that would be in your toolbox. Online meetings are great. They're really helping us connect with stakeholders in these limiting times, but also it allows for recordings, reaching more people and real-time feedback. One example of that is early in March, I was helping on the technical side of things for some charrettes that were being hosted by TBARDA. We are actually able to have those in person, and the last one being March 13th, right before everything sort of started closing down. There was obviously more charrettes that they wanted to have, so what we ended up doing was partnering with them to create digital charrettes. We made a microsite online that ran through not only the presentation that was filmed and recorded and gave a digital version of that, but also then had the charrette games that they were playing. So they were doing a Monopoly type game with how would you build out your station for the RRT project. And we were able to create that online and leave it open. And the great thing about that is that not only does it allow you to leave it open for a longer period of time, I think the review period for that was 30 days, but it allows people then to sort of digest that information at their own time. Even when we weren't in COVID, it's difficult for people, unless they're really passionate about a project, to carve out the time that they need, typically on a weekday at a night, and sometimes they have kids or school or a job, and it can make meetings difficult to get to. So one of sort of the digital assets and digital engagement techniques that we're talking about is leveraging not only the live side of things, but creating digital engagement online where it can live for a longer period of time and allow reach to more people when they have free time on a weekend, or if they have a night that works for them better than when the actual live meeting was held, they could actually digest all that information and become better aware of what's going on with the project, what it means and what it means to them, as well as giving them the opportunity to be a part of the discussion and give their input on the project. Next slide. Besides having these sort of digital versions of meetings in conjunction with face-to-face meetings when we can have them, video is a great tool that we've seen projects start utilizing even pre-COVID. Video allows you to create small digestible videos, 3 to 5 minutes, that can very easily explain complex ideas. So, through visualizations, animations, and interactive maps, you can put together an informational piece, utilizing, 3D modeling, actual conditions as they are on the ground, interviews with, key personnel, and create a message that's easy for people to understand, and sort of helps digest, from an engineering side of things to a stakeholder side of things. what's going on, what's really happening, and does it in a format that, you know, more and more people are turning to get their information. Just some of the stats, you know, that you're seeing is, you know, from reports for websites that have and utilize video and rich media, people end up staying on them 2.3 times longer than they would if it was just a site with images and text. So what you're really doing is you're upping your engagement, you're upping the time people spend on a site if you're utilizing it through a website or a microsite for the project. But also, you know, you can then leverage that time that they spend on site to get even more information, and hopefully then push them towards either filling out a survey, or if you want to do wiki maps, if you're doing, you know, a bike ped project, you're getting more interaction the longer they are on your site. So that's a beneficial tool for that. Next slide. And so here we have a graph that actually shows smartphone ownership in the US. We're actually in 2020 estimated to go up to, you know, 85% of the population. For a long time, one of the factors that sort of held people back from moving towards the digital realm was obviously the digital divide. And, you know, and how did that work for people that didn't have access to the internet or access to a computer? The good thing that we're seeing now is more and more people are owning smartphones. Obviously, with technology becoming cheaper, the access point to them and the cost to enter into that realm becoming lower, as well as new technologies like responsive web development and, you know, video applications, online forums. Having a computer and a broadband internet connection is less of a limitation nowadays because you're seeing more people actually be able to do it with a smartphone. And this doesn't even include people that have tablets or also have computers. So what you're seeing with this trend is over the last 10 years, you know, we've gone from 14 to 85%. We're kind of forced into it now, obviously, because of conditions on the ground, but the numbers that we're seeing and the ownership we're seeing of people that have, you know, web accessible devices is pointing us in a direction where this is technology that can be utilized far into the future and continue to be utilized as things return to normal, which is what will sort of go on in my next slide, please. So future of public outreach, you know, obviously, right now, everything has to be digital. Right now, you know, you need to have a project website. If you can leverage social media content, that's great. If you can brand and collateral, depending on the size of the site and how much effort is going into getting public buy-in. These are the digital tools that we're using now. Everyone's pretty familiar with them, I think, at this point. But, you know, what happens as we move out of this period? What are we going to do? And I think one of the takeaways that we have as a company is that we shouldn't throw away all these tools that we're getting right now. We see that they work. We're seeing, you know, engagement levels higher than we anticipated for digital only, you know, outreach. And we're also, you know, seeing people move towards that realm and utilize and be more comfortable with that realm. So we've taken a big step, and it was a forced step, but it's one that I think will continue in the future and also allow for more input and buy-in from stakeholders. That doesn't mean that, you know, traditional methods and actual face-to-face public meetings, you know, and paper surveys and mailers, that stuff should go away. I think that stuff's great. But if you can leverage that with also, you know, evergreen assets that live online that can be open for a longer period of time, all that you're doing at that point is then allowing the stakeholders to have more input, and hopefully through that, more buy-in in the project and less problems down the line. So what we're seeing is sort of a twofold strategy moving forward of using your typical, you know, face-to-face public meetings, all of the tools that we, you know, we're using in 2019, but then adding to that, you know, some of these digital tools that we're seeing good results from. And all that we're seeing that be able to do is if you can work those in conjunction, like we did with T-BARTA, we're getting a lot more responses, a lot more buy-in, and a lot more people being a part of the process, which at the end of the day is what we want. So with, you know, everything that's going on and with people's time being so valuable, being able to have not only a place for face-to-face and make that connection, but also a place for people if they wanted to spend more time and take more time to get knowledge about the project, working in conjunction with those two seems to be the way that we're going to go into the future and what we're trying to push as a company right now. Next slide. And that's sort of a broad overview of the technology. I know a lot of the other panelists are going to go more deeply into technology pieces that can be used in the digital realm, but that was sort of a 30,000 foot view of how we see technology working with tried and true outreach methods as we move forward.
Thank you very much, Matt. Before we move on to our next speaker, we do have a polling question that I believe Barbara is going to post really quickly. The question is, what is the first question asked audibly or silently at a public meeting? And you can put your answers up on through Zoom, and Barbara will let us know the results of the poll. And which will really segue nicely to our next speaker, Gary Ratcliffe. We also have a question and answer from Derek Hudson. A question, is there a particular reason for choosing Zoom for today's webinar platform? And I believe that's been the platform that Team Florida has been using. So that's primarily might be a more in-depth answer later from when they originally started these meetings, of why they chose Zoom, but it's been the consistent platform that's worked thus far. So the results thus far is, what does it look like from my house or business? So also, how long will construction take? Yeah, that's a pretty popular one. And is this a good use of tax dollars? All good questions. So I will stop sharing the results and move on to Gary. And Gary, could you please take over now? We would love to hear about your insights in technology and public outreach.
Sure will. Thank you, Valerie. Thanks, Matt, for your presentation. And thank you, Team Florida, for giving us the opportunity to show you the 123 BIM technology. So the question was about the typical question that's asked at a stakeholder public meeting. The answer is typically, what does it look like for my house or business? Now, that's a tricky one to anticipate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the 123 BIM technology that will help put those stakeholder public people into their location and see what it's going to look like from their house. And it's going to be fun because we're going to, next slide please, we're going to do a little live demo, and I'm going to be doing this from my phone, and I'd ask you to do the same, or you can do it from your laptop. So follow along with what's on the screen, but for your smartphone. And I'm bringing mine up here, and I'm going to scan the QR code. And once I scan that QR code, a link will come up, and you'll see it right there. I'm going to click on that, and that will take me to my browser, and it will take me to a splash screen. Now, what you'll see in here is nothing to download, nothing to install. This is a QR code. If you're on a laptop or a workstation, you can just type in the address that's on the screen there. It's the same thing. So it might look a little different if you're on a laptop or a smartphone. So hopefully you see this, and so then you click on the go, and now you can use your finger and you can look around the model. And at the bottom here, you can see you can switch between design and existing. So in real time, you can actually see what the condition looks currently, and then you can switch it to design, and then you can look at what is proposed. And you'll see that there's multiple views that you can use. You can scroll through. These views can be set up ahead of time, so that anticipation of what does it look like for my front yard, you can actually plug those camera views in, and the public can, on their smartphone, they can, on their tablet or on their computers at home, they can start looking at the view and compare existing and proposed. What you'll also see is that at the top of the screen, right-hand side, there will be a social media click to Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. Again, it's all done dynamically. All you have to do is use the QR code, your smartphone or your tablet. So hopefully some of the panelists, I know you guys were going to try this, so hopefully you've been able to get in and interact with the model on your phone. Nothing to download, nothing to install. It's easily accessible. There's options in here as well. You'll see there's the mask icon to go into VR. It depends on where you're looking at the application. There'll be a key map as well. So this is just an overview of the technology of the 123BIM virtual tour, which is one component of the actual technology. So let's take a quick look behind the scenes at how this works. So next slide, please. So the benefits here, what we're doing is we are not publishing. We're not rendering. We are publishing to the cloud. So the two key takeaways in this illustration is that one, you're working from within your CAD application, so there's no change in your workflow. And we are publishing to the cloud, so we don't have to deal with render time. So that means that these things work dynamically, and we can get you the results quickly. From within the 123BIM cloud, we can then extract these multiple types of outputs, and we all have experience creating renderings and animations, and they are a great tool. Here, what we're creating is we're creating this living document, this 123BIM model, and from within that model, we are then producing the fly-throughs, and they can be 360 fly-throughs, which not a lot of people are used to those, where you can actually use your mouse to look around. And we can do the virtual tours. You can extract images for renderings to mount on a board. Again, it can be seen on the smart screen on the smartphones. You can go to VR. So you've got all of these outputs from one model. And just something else to note is, yes, we believe in the cloud because that makes everything accessible to everybody in real time. However, if there are any internet issues, we do have a piece of software that syncs to the cloud. And if you have internet issues, you can still interact with the model. So it does rely on the cloud for the most of the functionality, which we all are used to these days, but we do have a backup too. So now let's take a quick look at the engineering effort needed to make a public involvement deadline. So next slide, please. And I know this is going to date me, but this kind of gets the point over that Captain Kirk, he just wants those latest changes in the roadway to go to that meeting that night. And poor Scotty's down in the engine room and he's rendering his tail off. And he's just saying that the render times are too high. There's got to be a better way. And what's also interesting about this is that by the time the information gets to the rendering engine, the designer's probably already changed. So it's a tough one to keep up with, certainly in the conceptual stage. So the better way that he's talking about here, or an option, would be to use 123BIM in the CAD workflow so that you don't actually have to render, you just publish to the cloud. And the changes made that day, that afternoon, can still be updated in the cloud, and then when Captain Kirk goes to the meeting, those latest changes are in that 123BIM model. They're in the virtual tour, and those latest changes will be reflected. So consider that from a PD&E stage. Everything is so conceptual at that level. These models are created average time 3 to 4 weeks that we deliver the model, the 123BIM model. And from within there, it's a living document, so you can update it. You can get all those videos and images out and virtual tours. So what this does is it actually provides something that is dynamically updatable rather than the throwaway kind of visualizations of the renderings and animations, which still have a purpose. But at the conceptual level, this we're finding is the sweet spot. So what we're going to take a look at now is, from an engineering perspective, what does it mean to build trust with the public at a meeting? So next slide, please. So here on, this was a project up in District 5, State Road 40 in Ocala. You'll see the traditional overlay there, and below that you'll see the 123BIM model, and you'll see one of the engineers actually sitting down with a smartphone or a tablet and showing the neighbors the impact of what this limited access update is going to look like for them from their driveway. So you're building trust by offering clear communications of the complexities of engineering, which is a tall order. And what's interesting is that clear communication may even uncover an objection in the process, but even so, this still helps engineers and agencies understand the objections and create a pathway to yes through continued clear communication. So everybody gets on the same page. There's no smoke and mirrors. The stakeholder public understands what it is that you're proposing in context, because you can see existing and proposed. And after all, the goal is to help the stakeholder understand the complexities of engineering and avoid the misunderstandings that lead to a preventable no. So by building trust, by explaining clearly to them, because if you say, if Mrs. Brown says, I'd like to look from my driveway, and you say, well, where do you live? Well, we'll come back in a couple of weeks with a rendering or an animation. You know, you've missed an opportunity there to actually put her at ease. And what we're saying with this technology is that you can say, well, Mrs. Brown, where do you live? Let's put you right in your driveway. Here you can see it in context, and actually you can't even see it. Or maybe you can, and this is what it's going to be like with the sound walls. And so you're inviting her in and giving her an instant answer. So, so part of that is you're making them part of the process rather than a spectator, and offering some transparency that helps build the trust and keep moving the project forward. So where does 123 BIM technology fit? So next slide, please. So the sweet spot really is building a bridge between the complexities of engineering and the needs of the public. So engineers have an amazing capability and spend a lot of years training to understand the complexities of engineering. And you've got the public on the other side that don't have that training, but yet they still need to understand the impact, because this is going to be in their neighborhood and their community. So with nothing to download, nothing to install, this technology allows the public to interact and engage with the project rather than, like I previously said, rather than spectate. So I'm sure we can all relate to how difficult it is to predict ahead of time where the issues are going to come from. And it's difficult to say, I want a rendering from here, a rendering from here. Here you just create the immersive model, you go to the meeting, and then you actually invite people into that model. So being asked where they live and place them in that location in real time can make all the difference in the results of a public engagement meeting, because it brings that clarity and the trust that we talked about. So how does this fit into the agency's workflow? Next slide, please. So this was a District 3 project, and they embedded the virtual tour into their Northwest Florida Roads website. So you'll be able to see that it says virtual tour where that red arrow is. And next slide, please. They'll take you to the virtual tour, which you've already experienced. So you can, again, just use your camera to scan that QR code. It'll take you straight into the virtual tour model. The important thing about this is that if the model changes at any time, if there are any updates, we just update the model, publish it to the cloud in real time, and the virtual tour is updated dynamically. You don't have to send out another link, another QR code. So each time you get feedback from the public and you make an update, it is then reflected in the virtual tour once it's been updated. And next time they visit, they'll see that you responded to their feedback. So that's a pretty powerful thing, because it takes away a lot of the heavy lifting of responding to the public after an event. So next slide, please. Let's take a look at what we have with the virtual tour and the project collaboration. I haven't talked much about the project collaboration, but this still speaks to the social distancing side of things that we've got going on. This technology is operating system agnostic, meaning it'll work on a PC, it'll work on a Macintosh, Android, or Apple. Nothing to download, nothing to install. It all works from within the browser for you to be able to collaborate and for the virtual tour. And what's neat about the project collaboration is that you invite people into the live session, and in that live session, rather than with the usual platforms of Zoom and Teams and others, what this does is this allows each person that logs in to interact with a model, and they can actually look from a certain location, drill down at a concern, and they can extract the image of that, mark it up, send it off. So it's a live session in a living document. So that allows people from a distance to be able to collaborate on a project, whereas before you probably would have just gathered around a set of plans in the conference room. That doesn't happen too much these days, but with the project collaboration option built within the 123BIM software, that is now available. So next slide, please. So the key takeaway is that the 123BIM technology provides the remote collaboration within a project team. It coordinates with stakeholder agencies and facilitates virtual public meetings to keep projects moving forward in a post-COVID-19 environment. And when things return to normal, as you can see in this image here, this was a TPO meeting up in Panama City project, and you can see that they're using the smart screens with the virtual tour. A postcard was created that was a takeaway for people to take home with them, so they could access the project once they left the event. So hopefully we will return to that fairly soon. But in the meantime, with this 123BIM technology, this allows the stakeholder public to be in the project rather than outside the project. So with that, I'll hand over to Marco.
Thank you, Gary. Can we go to the next slide, Valerie?
Thank you, Marco. Already.
So I'm here to introduce the SkySight Smart Screen. It's a tool that's been out in the market for a while. ARC has been providing it to a lot of groups, Turnpike, FDOTs, and nationwide, these screens have been going out for public meetings and public events. We found a lot of strength behind them. A lot of our team members and a lot of the folks that have engaged us to put these tools out, we've seen the public and the interactions with the public versus a static image and an actual image that we can manipulate and look at the same way the engineer looks at it back when he's designing and working on it. If we can go to the next slide. A little bit about the SkySight Smart Screen. It's just a tool that's used in offices for interacting and project interactions between teams and collaboration. A lot of collaboration. The tool is a powerful tool. It's an actual PC, and it puts everything at your fingertips, literally. If I can share a video, Valerie would give me control here. I can share a video of one of your peers actually going out and experimenting and looking into the smart screen and seeing the value behind it during a project. This is Brock LaForty from WSP. He's the VP for Transportation in the Carolinas. And he came out and he wanted to see the smart screen. And I'll let Brock speak about it a little in this video.
I oversee all of North and South Carolina offices and operations, mostly transportation infrastructure focused here in the Southeast. It all started, actually, it's linked to one of our competitors that you guys also have a contract with. I was in South Carolina at a public meeting for a big project that HDR was doing the planning and environmental work, preliminary design work on, and there was a lot of emphasis on the public involvement, and they were using the smart screen for those public meetings. So myself and some others from WSP were there at that meeting, seeing how they were used, and then ran into ARC guys, and explained that these are part of that you guys are now running those smart screens, and HDR had a contract just like we do, and talked about how great they were for that particular project. And client was using them, other firms were coming in, checking them out, and how it was being used. So that was the start of it. Months later, was talking to the head of public involvement for North Carolina DOT, and talking about, they want to be cutting edge and do things differently, and they really want to go paperless and bring in technology. And I talked about what I had seen in South Carolina on the Carolina Crossroads project that HDR was doing, and started talking about smart screens. Then we really, what I would call, we demoed it and used it and sold them on the idea for one of the projects we were doing in North Carolina, 14-mile long corridor where we're widening big roadway jobs through different jurisdictions, 2 cities, number of towns, rural and urban environments, and just the amount of paper and the maps and the design on the maps and stuff was just, you couldn't find a room big enough. So we thought this would be a good trial, and we're able to get 8 screens set up, 2 nights of meetings, and it went fantastically. Now it's it's not, doesn't fit for every project and everything they want to do public involvement wise. But a lot of these bigger projects where space is an issue and you can't just have rolls and rolls and, hundreds of feet of paper maps. And if there's a lot of information to display, these smart screens really concise, get a lot of stuff in there, and it's just, and quite frankly, people like seeing the information, touching it and seeing the screen in front of them. So the public came up to the different screens depending on what area of the project they were interested in. So we had a 14-mile corridor basically displayed across Fourth instead of having, I don't know, we calculated 100 feet of maps versus 4 smart screens. And then the first night we had close to 150 people through, very well received again both nights. Everyone's so familiar with smartphones and technology now, and flat screen TVs. People just like the technology, from the young folks to kids to the older folks. Very intuitive. It was very well received by the public and by the client.
So I want to say thank you to Brock for making the video for us. And I want to share the screen again with you just to show you some of the projects that we worked on. This is the specific project that Brock brought up. This is the Carolina Crossroads project. And what they were able to do with the smart screen was, besides just sharing the physical plans, they were able to take their documents and use them like they were back at their office by hyperlinking the documents and being able to present this technology and present the actual images and the files to the public as they were seeing them. And a good thing with the smart screen is that when you're speaking to the public and the public is also coming in and looking at the document, you're also able to share with the people, if you have this, the virtual image here that our friend was sharing. Let me get that up here on the screen. I grabbed the wrong image.
Marco, I'm actually took over the screen sharing. Oh, looks like you're back on.
Okay. So yes, like I was saying, the actual document that our friend here, Gary, was sharing, I wanted to share some of that just to show the folks here what this image would do when we're in front of the public, not with this COVID era and how things are happening. If this is the image that Gary was talking about, his bin 123 image, and I'm going to go ahead and share my phone like we would in the public sphere, and the smart screen would actually just go out and project a code for someone to log in and for them to be able to share exactly what they're looking at. This is my physical iPhone now. It's projecting directly onto the screen. And like Gary was mentioning, you would just scan that QR code and it would literally just take you there to the image. And now I'm able to see on my phone exactly his image and what he was talking about. And I'm able to look at that, and you're able to engage with the public now and see exactly what the public is looking at. And they're able to give you a better explanation of what they're looking at or what their questions are. And then with the smart screen, the strength behind it is you're able to record, and you're able to record audio, video, and you're able to record the content also as you're marking it up, and you're able to save that and create a public record, a digital public record, and continue to stay away from the paper. You're able to digitize your meetings and work at the speed of technology versus the speed of paper. We've seen that, we've tested it over and over with different teams, and every team that's come out and put this out have all come back and have favored keeping their meetings digital and keeping their meetings within the scope where people are able to come in and share content instantly and be able to mark up that content, and whether it's taking audio, video, or actually recording content from someone's device, of course, with their permission, right? We're able to do that with the smart screen. The smart screen provides you that strength when you're out in the public sphere and you're speaking to folks. And with this, the times we're in now with COVID and so on, we're able to keep that social distance. Show me what you have on your device, and let's project your device onto the screen, and let's talk about it that way. And we're able to keep that content and save that content. And it's out there. It's It's been out, the technology has been out for several years. I'm sure a lot of the folks at Team Florida have worked in this space. We've shared a lot of this technology with a lot of different teams already. And we've done a great job, I think, at helping it come out into the public space. And the public has really embraced it. We've seen it embraced. And I want to say thank you to Team Florida for allowing us to share the smart screen with you today. Without further ado, Valerie, it's all yours.
Thank you, Marco. That was fabulous. We've gotten a couple questions in. One question from Michelle is, how has the new environment changed your plan for public project information and involvement for board meetings?
Well, certainly. Thank you so much, Valerie, and to Team Florida for asking me to be a part of this amazing panel. Some really good information, and what's great too is the fact that several of the folks on the panel work with CFX, and hopefully we'll get to talk about that. Relating to our board meetings, we certainly have gone all virtual, like many board in our state have, many boards in our state have. And we have considered a variety of platforms. However, we use webinar for our, or WebEx for our board meetings monthly. It was challenging at first, and I will say that even every month as we approach a board meeting, just preparing for it, it takes a lot of preparation in advance, a lot of practicing presentations and so forth. I think for this audience, as it relates to the public and public comments, because that is part of our board meeting process, is that we have developed a process where the community can email us in advance of our board meetings and provide public comment on any of the issues that may be coming before our board or otherwise. And at the board meeting, those comments are read by our general counsel. If it generally at a board meeting, it doesn't require a response, but it's certainly, this environment has certainly provided some challenges, but we have embraced those and are working through it every single month.
Well, thank you. I'm sure you guys have been able to pivot and done well with your reputation for being responsive for your customers. So that's very good information. I'm going to now go to our next presenter, which is Brianna Smith from Selamon. I think hopefully I have her presentation up on the screen. So Brianna.
You do. Thank you, Valerie. My name is Brianna Smith, and I am with Sella Molnar and Associates. Thank you, Matt, Gary, and Marco for discussing some amazing innovative tools that can be used in person and virtually. But today I'll be talking more about how to hold a virtual public meeting from a more broad approach. Next slide, please, Valerie. So I'd like to start with an overview about virtual public meetings. Virtual meetings use online tools to supplement traditional and in-person meetings or open houses. The public is able to participate, give feedback, provide comments, and in some instances engage in real-time live chat sessions as well with the project team, not to mention video conferencing like we're doing today if desired. The virtual meeting format allows for increased flexibility amongst the project team and its attendees. Attendees can participate as much or as little as they desire from the comfort of their own space. And presentation recordings and transcript features are also available with most platforms. These recordings will allow for immediate and concise project documentation, which is a great benefit for us in the virtual public meeting realm. Next slide, please. So some advantages that come with virtual public meetings. I'll go into detail more about these advantages in the next slide, but some of these advantages include topic area experts from different regions can attend these meetings with ease. This creates opportunity for a more diverse project team. Virtual meetings can be more cost effective than in-person meetings because they eliminate the need for additional printed meeting materials. Team members can create digital material and present it more efficiently, which can save time. The audience can attend from anywhere, making the attendee flexibility much greater. And virtual public meetings can span across a larger audience since there's a greater attendance cap with virtual public meetings as opposed to physical locations which will have a capacity cap. Next slide, please. So firstly, it's important to recognize that virtual public meetings allow for a more diverse project team. The project team members are often comprised of individuals from lots of different regions and lots of different areas. The virtual meeting platform allows for topic experts to attend with ease, eliminating the need or the travel time, cost for travel, scheduling conflicts, etc. If a specialized member of your team lives far away or has scheduling conflicts, the virtual meeting platform makes it easier for all team members to be present and provide crucial insight and expertise that otherwise could have been missed without their attendance. Next slide, please. In many instances, virtual public meetings can be held at a lower cost than traditional public engagement methods as well. Virtual public meetings eliminate the need for or associated costs for space rentals, which include the rental price for physical space, equipment rentals, and public printed meeting materials for the meeting as well. Since virtual public meetings reduce the need for printed meeting materials, our carbon footprint is also reduced, which is obviously a win-win for us as well. The virtual public meeting software can also be minimal, the cost for the software, depending on the need. To hold a virtual public meeting can cost anywhere from $50 for a basic plan to $500 for a more inclusive plan if you need it. Costs will obviously vary based on the number of invited attendees and what the needs of the platform will be. The greater the dollar amount, the more features you will have. Next, please. So the time it takes to create and present project material via the virtual public meeting format can be much more time effective as well. The meeting can start and end time can be strictly controlled, whereas during an in-person meeting, I think we all are familiar with this, sometimes conversations can shift off topic and create lengthy and inefficient meetings, thus straying away from the intended message or goal of the meeting. So these virtual meetings can be more strictly controlled in that manner. Holding a virtual public meeting allows for more productive work efforts in many cases as well. The project team members are compelled to create content that is straightforward, concise, and thorough in an effort to share these ideas virtually as efficiently and effectively as possible. Additionally, like we have seen here today, the instant polling platform can be implemented during the meeting to gauge public opinion. This saves time because it eliminates the need to set up a separate polling site, which comes with separate polling deadlines and separate polling costs associated with that site. Being able to use this tool live during the meeting can be a real cost savings benefit as well. That takes us to attendee flexibility. Virtual public meetings allow for obviously increased flexibility from our attendees since they can participate based on their schedule from their homes, office spaces, car rides, etc. Even attendees with limited internet access can call in to listen to the presentation via cell phone, which I'm sure many of you are doing today, from any location. Attendees can also view recorded meeting at any time after the meeting is posted to the website, which Matt talked about earlier. It gives us a broader approach. People can, view this information later on at their own leisure. So attendees who could not avoid scheduling conflicts in attending the meeting today still have the opportunity to listen into every detail mentioned, which can also increase the feeling of attendee inclusivity as well. They're not missing any of the content or being told secondhand what was occurring at the meeting. The virtual meeting platform can also create more opportunities for attendees to comment in writing, which sounds crazy, but we see in a lot of times at our meetings, attendees don't feel comfortable speaking in front of others, which is understandable. This platform helps for them to remain anonymous, especially if they have opposing views from the crowd. Next slide, please. The increased flexibility that I just discussed also increases participation from citizens who normally could not attend in-person meetings due to conflicts such as work, immobility, childcare conflicts, etc. Your workaholic can attend from the Bluetooth in their car. Caretakers can attend from the comfort of their own home with their kids present. And attendees who may have restricted mobility can attend from their laptops or telephones. So it really broadens our audience to a whole new level. The virtual public meeting can also increase participation from attendees who live adjacent to or travel through the project area. This is really exciting because a lot of times we're limited to the project area itself, but having the meeting at a physical location can sometimes limit the number of attendees that we're able to invite. A lot of facilities only allow for a capacity of 50 to 200 people, but this platform can expand the audience into the thousands if needed, depending on the platform that you plan or need. Next slide, please. Now, to talk about some of the negative aspects regarding virtual public meetings. Even though there are so many great positives about it, there are always some cons. One of those would be the technological barriers that can sometimes be an issue for people. It's inevitable some attendees may not have the access to internet or telephone, like Matt mentioned earlier. Obviously, we have so many people that are becoming technologically savvy, but there are going to be some individuals that don't have the access to technology. And additionally, the voice-over slideshows and cameras and videos angles that we're doing today can sometimes require a larger bandwidth for the audience, which can create a slower feed on their end. And of course, that can be frustrating for the viewer. Sometimes unstructured questions or responses can occur in the live chat or speak feature if it's being utilized. This can make it difficult to effectively get the group to refocus on the task at hand. We also sometimes receive negative feedback from grandstanders. Obviously, they don't prefer this platform since they do not have a live audience to rally or influence. So we do get that comment as well from some audience members. And obviously, there's nothing like face-to-face interactions. Obviously, we're doing a great job being able to utilize the tools that we have, but face-to-face meetings build trust better than virtual public meetings. It's just a fact of life. People appreciate face-to-face meetings, and they can help to build those interpersonal relationships that are key to success to a project. And unfortunately, the virtual public meeting platform denies attendees of this experience in many cases. And finally, attendees may sometimes be more prone to distractions if they're at home rather than in-person meetings. In our in-person meetings, we can define the environment and make sure that things are controlled, whereas sometimes people can miss key information if they're at home due to work conflicts or childcare. But again, that positive is if information is missed, or the attendees at home can then later on go and review any information that they may have missed in that moment. Next slide, please. So just a few additional tips about holding a virtual public meeting. Obviously, practice, practice, practice. Holding 1 to 2 practice sessions prior to the virtual public meeting can help to ensure that technological issues are resolved. We did it today. We got on here. We worked through some of the problems that we could have had to try to resolve them. Obviously, things still come up, but it is best to practice as many times as your team is willing to get together. It will also help to maintain a steady presentation flow and approach between speakers. And if you're utilizing the video conference feature, be sure to check your background environment. A space that is clean, simple, and free of distracting memorabilia and the decor in the background is a great plus. Check your lighting. A lot of times lighting can be dark and you might not realize it. You can't see your facial features, so it's important to make sure that your space is well lit and that your expression and material tools are easily seen. Check your spatial positioning. Be sure the position of your camera is centered and displayed accordingly prior to being turned on before you start speaking. Check your sound. This is a big one. It's nice to use headphones if you have them. It helps with the echo in the background. And if you are not presenting at that time, be sure to mute yourself because it helps with echoing in the background and it's easier to hear for a lot of the attendees. Next slide, please. So thank you for listening. Again, my name is Brianna Smith. My email and cell phone are here. Please feel free to email me or call me with any questions you may have after our presentation. And I thank you for having me. Back to you, Valerie.
Thank you, Brianna. I really appreciate that. We actually have more than 100 attendees, and we have several questions for our panelists. The first question is from Alvaro Alonso, and he's asking Matt about public involvement and being more personal during COVID-19.
It's a very good question, and one that Brianna obviously just brought up as one of the cons of having virtual meetings. One of the ideas that we've been kicking around is obviously, these virtual meetings are great for disseminating information, getting information about the project out there to stakeholders, getting them to understand sort of, project limits, what it's going to look like. A lot of the tools that we showed today are great tools and wonderful and really help to visually show what's going on in the project. But, your question is right. How do you sort of create that personal connection? And one of the things that we discussed when we were initially looking at how we would do virtual charrettes was maybe possibly, breaking out into smaller teams. So having, meetings like this where you have RSVPs, and based on RSVPs, you can set up time slots where they can video as well. Again, that's going to increase the technology needed, and with the digital divide, sometimes that could be an issue. But I feel like if you can at least get maybe like what you typically have a breakout group of 8 people, and you can schedule breakouts with 7 to 8 shareholders or stakeholders and see them, and they can see you. Obviously you can see me right now, I can't see you. It's not the same thing at all. So that was sort of one of the ideas that we were kicking around. We haven't had a chance to implement it, unfortunately, because we went with an all digital version for TBARDA, but I think it would be a good idea if the project allows and if the budget allows, obviously, to try to do smaller breakout sessions. Maybe you have more active participants, people that are constantly asking questions, people that you want to have a more personal relationship with, creating sort of virtual breakout tables where they can see you and you can see them, and then you get a little bit more of that connection. And that's kind of the closest we're going to be able to get, unfortunately, until, we can all meet again.
Thank you, Matt. We have a question for Marco from Derek Hudson. At the Florida Turnpike, we have used smart screens in the past. In light of COVID-19 considerations, please describe the functionality of smart screens when gloves are worn by the staff using the smart screen.
So the smart screen itself, the touch isn't physically on the screen like it would be on an iPhone or a tablet. It's actually lasers around the screen itself. So you could wear gloves, or you can actually use a pen and so on. So yes, you could wear gloves.
Important during these times. Actually, we have a question from Gary Hutman that could be answered by anyone. I'm going to throw it to Michelle since she's got a broad range of customers. Talking about the digital divide with the information about smartphones and ownership going up, what do you see now to folks that are still concerned about the digital divide, and what, as the responsibility of your agency, what are you doing to hopefully ease some of those concerns? You're on mute.
Yeah. And thank you, Gary, for the question. I think that certainly we're all learning lessons through COVID. I was just sitting here thinking a moment ago, I've been in the transportation for 20 plus years and doing public involvement, and wow, how different things have changed from whenever I first began, which was, the traditional meeting rooms and a lot of paper, and knocking on doors, really, and just telling people this is what's happening. And where we find ourselves today is, going all digital. We're completely on the other end of the spectrum, and we had to get ready for that pretty quickly. And certainly, I think that there are folks that don't have the access to the resources. And I think that you just continue to try to reach people through traditional means as best as possible. I don't think that we're going to go one or the other. I don't think we'll ever go back to strictly in-person meetings again. I think that it's certainly going to be a combination of the digital along with the in-person. From our perspective as an agency, we are looking to make sure that our communication is clear and concise, and that people can understand it. That is our objective, and that's all people, all stakeholders, whether you're impacted by the project or not. I mean, we are a community agency, and where we may be doing a project downtown, someone in Seminole County may drive through that project, like someone said earlier, maybe once in the 6 months that we're working in that area. So it's everybody's voice is important. So I think, we, with the technologies that you've seen today discussed and some of the processes, we're still learning, right? And things are changing dramatically, very quickly. And I think it's upon government agencies like the Central Florida Expressway Authority, where traditionally government has been nervous about change and nervous about trying new technologies for security reasons and cost you know, are we getting the money, spending our money correctly, whether it's toll dollars or tax dollars, efficiently for what we receive and the community is getting. So I think that, you know, we just have to stay diligent on that, be aware of it, and be prepared for tomorrow, be open-minded, and just stay to the core of what, you know, of what our mission is. And for CFX, it is to provide a world-class transportation facility. And that means listening to our community and having them be a part of the decisions that are being made as it relates to needs and solutions. Hopefully that answered in a roundabout way your question.
Well, that was a perfect summation of the entire presentation today. I want to thank Marco, Gary, Brianna, yourself, Michelle, Matt, and Team Florida for hosting this. It's very important. All of our presenters, fabulous job. Thank you very much.